Hey, ladies and gentlemen, good evening, and welcome back to more Great Ace Attorney. Um, Heck of an exciting intro to the second half of the game, and now we're about to head into the second case of the second part of the game, which is the flashback case, involving a certain Soseki Natsume again, I suppose. Memoirs of the Clouded Kokoro.
It was a ghastly tale of a winter's night. One of an invisible killer and a crime perpetrated on the pavement along Briar Road. As the victim lay at death's door, the mystery of just who had stabbed the young lady from behind had been resolved. But no sooner had my friend saved that Eastern Exchange student from his harrowing plight, then in the dim, flickering shadows of gaslight did a second bizarre crime rend the stillness of that very night. I dare say most can still recall the sensational headlines of the day. Haunted apartment of death, the condemned criminal's curse, the dread demon of coal gas. Yet, though the great detective had at once discerned the truth upon his arrival at the scene, it only proved to be the overture that announced the rising of the curtain on a most tragic play.
My man Soseki got accused for another murder, like right away. Wow, poor guy. My name is Ryunosuke Naruhodo. I'm a fledgling lawyer just starting out on my journey. 6 months ago, I arrived as a visiting student of law. One day after... Wow, poor guy. Having made the long voyage across the sea from the Empire of Japan to here, London, England. And on the way, in quite extraordinary circumstances, I made the acquaintance of a world-famous detective. Currently, I reside in the attic of the detective's own lodgings, from where I run my legal consultancy of sorts. I've successfully defended a number of clients in Britain's highest court, the Old Bailey. But since a particularly grueling and unforgettable legal battle 4 months ago now, I haven't returned to the courtroom. In truth, I lost my right to return. But that epic trial was just one small part of an epic tale, a tale which was now about to awaken from slumber, thanks to a letter that had arrived this morning from my homeland. What a delicious smell wafting up the stairs. It must be nearly time for breakfast. I better go down to Mr. Sholmes' suite and say good morning to the great detective and his flatmate. Ah, Runo, good. I was just about to call up to you. The bacon's ready. Good morning, Iris. It smells delicious as usual. Before we eat, though, I have some news. I had a surprise this morning. Shh! Not another word, Mr. Naruhodo. This could be just the abstruse thing from my pre-breakfast stagnation-repelling mental stimulation, my dear fellow. Morning to you too, Mr. Sholmes. Ah, yes. I see. So that's it. Sholmes jump scare! The truth is as clear to me as day. My faculties of observation have revealed it again. What are you talking about? You, Mr. Naruhodo. You have, this very morning, met with a surprise! Well, is that not the case? Really, my dear fellow, it barely warrants explanation. Firstly, your hair is particularly unkempt, somewhat reminiscent of a bird's nest. Secondly, you have neglected to fasten the third button of your jacket. Clearly, when considered together, these two facts point to you having been flustered this morning. Can I talk now? But of course. Though I don't look for admiration, you understand. My hair always looks like this. It's been this way since I first met you. Oh, it has. And the button was ripped off last night, if you remember. By you. Hurley put your button off? Ah, yes, I recall the incident now. It was after supper, was it not? As the evening advanced, I picked up my violin and began to play the wailing notes of a haunting tune. But then, to my utter dismay, the third string snapped! Why did it have to happen? Why? Little wonder then that in my vexation I grabbed the first button I saw and ripped it from its proper place. Well, I'd like it back now, please. It's troubling me that I can't fasten my jacket. And it's troubling me that you expect me to know where it is. Somewhere thereabouts on the floor, one presumes. Helpful. What matters at the present time, my dear fellow, is simply whether or not my deduction was unerring. But Hurley, Runo said it when he came in, didn't he? I had a surprise this morning. Well, that really is a surprise. Yes, this man is the pride of the British Empire, the famous consulting detective, Mr. Sherlock Holmes. There can't be a single person in the world who doesn't know his name. Alright then, enough of this silly conversation. Come and eat this bacon before it goes cold. And I have a new herbal tea for you to try too, my latest special blend. And here we have Iris Wilson, Mr. Sholmes' lodger and companion. A truly exceptional young girl who's the author of a highly successful serialization here in London. Yes, The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes as published in Rand's magazine. So, Mr. Naruhodo, won't you put us out of our misery? What surprised you this fine morning? Oh, well, I received a letter from Japan. Oh, from Susie, you mean? Was it? Really? That's right, and she had some rather startling news, in fact. Ah, intriguing indeed. You must tell us all about it over breakfast. Oh yes, what fun! Well, we could also examine the room. I see he's got his contraption back from the pawnbroker. The machine really is imposing, isn't it? But I can never remember its name. Hurley calls it his great analyzoscope. It can analyze anything at all. That doesn't really help me. What does analyzing something even mean? Ah, an extremely astute question, Mr. Naruhodo. Sorry? Well, as Iris said, the machine here spits out analysis results of anything with which you care to present it. But how to interpret those results, that's the key, and I confess I have no idea. Clearly, I'm going to have to construct a great analyzoscope to solve the problem. That might not help. Yeah, he's got it back from the pawnbrokers. Books, papers, scientific implements. These shelves are stuffed to the gunners. Miss Susato wouldn't be able to help herself if she were here. She can't stand mess. Susie might not be able to stand mess, but she wouldn't dare touch those shelves. Oh, why not? Everything's in intricate balance. Probably spends ages on it. If you were to touch even one thing, the whole lot will come tumbling down. Susie noticed that it was a very delicate arrangement right from the outset. You make it sound like a meeting of great minds. But the truth is, Mr. Sholmes just needs to tidy up. The violin. Ah yes, Mr. Sholmes' faithful musical companion. Wasn't this violin made by somebody famous? Yes, it's a Stradivarius. So I'm afraid you have to save up for 100 years before you could afford one, Bruno. But didn't you buy it for a song, Mr. Sholmes? I found it at a pawnbrokery among the forfeited articles. It clearly said Stradivarius on the label. What? The ignorant broker had no idea of its true value, you see, so I paid him near 55 shillings for it. Yes, I have something of a turn for shopping. Sherlock Holmes. Bargain hunter. But is it really a Stradivarius then? But of course, my dear fellow. It said so on the label. I think perhaps the ignorant broker had something of a turn for selling. Ah yes. It's funny because it's true, there are a ton of fake strats out in the market. It's very hard to tell a real strat from a fake strat, unless you know what to look out for. And Mr. Sholmes doesn't look like he knows what to look out for. When it gets to this time of year, Londoners seem to leave their hearths alight all day long. And I love it. There's something very relaxing about watching the flames flit and dance about. But a fireplace in days of summertime is a waste of space. Really, no use at all. Rather like a great detective in days of no crimes and no criminals, Hurley? But consider this. Instead of a fireplace, a frost place. That's my latest idea. An extraordinary hearth from which emanates a cool breeze in the hot summer months. What do you think? I think if you invented such a thing, your name would go down in history. The principle is extremely simple. One must, of course, light a cold fire in the hearth. Yes, of course. Brilliant. The trouble is, none of the fires I build ever burn cold. How it taunts me. So, as you British say, he's a bit of a damn squib. He wants to invent air conditioning. Probably. And the good old Crimson Slipper is there, which he keeps his tobacco in. There's a Judge Hammer in there now. Was that there the last time round? I don't remember. These are different pieces of evidence from cases you solved, aren't they, Mr. Sholmes? Not quite, Mr. Naruhodo, not quite. These trinkets are a selection from cases I've solved with particular aplomb. They are souvenirs of my success. Memories, Mr. Naruhodo, memories. Really? So, tell me about the case in which the bust of Napoleon featured. I forget. Memories, he says. Wonderful, Mr. Sholmes, wonderful. I can tell you about the case that had the bust of Napoleon. It was a case in which there was a gem hidden inside one of the busts of Napoleon by a couple of thieves who were trying to smuggle it. And they worked at like a bust making like a pottery? I don't know. What's the name for like a pottery shop or whatever? Either way, they hid it inside one of the busts of Napoleon, and then Sholmes went around and had to deduce, well, Holmes had to go around and deduce which one of the busts had the gem in them because they had been sent out into the public. Yeah. Ah yes, the huge metal chest with the lace cloth laid on it being used as a table for tea and coffee. It's very sturdy, that's for sure, and firmly locked shut. That chest contains my father's detailed records of Hurley's many cases. Yes, so I've been led to believe, though personally I've never actually seen inside. And that's the way we'll stay. Those papers are a secret between Daddy and me. If you go opening it uninvited, you might find yourself being bitten. What, is there a beast inside there or something? He stares at math equations too. Ah yes, this is where you note down ideas, isn't it, Iris? What's in the melting pot today? The blue carbuncle. Ah! Yeah, that's the exact one. That's the one about the Napoleon bust. The blue carbuncle was hidden inside the Napoleon bust. Yes, it's from a case of theft that Hurley solved ages ago. The theft of a precious stone. A carbuncle is another name for a garnet, you see, especially if it's cut with a rounded top. Oh really? And this garnet was blue, was it? Well, that's the thing. They're usually red. No blue garnets have ever been discovered. Oh. So who knows what the stolen gemstone actually was? That's the real mystery of the case. A proper Herlock Sholmes conundrum, huh? That's nice, you know, they're throwing in more background references that I'm catching on to. There's so many different bottles up there on the charming little set of white shelves. Oh, do be careful, Runo. You mustn't try the contents of any of those bottles, even if you're hungry. I wouldn't do something stupid like that. I'm not a child, you know. Well, I wish I could say the same for Hurley. The other day, he polished off a full bottle of one of my alkaloids. He what? He said he was hungry. Oh, be extra careful. Didn't several people die from alkaloid poisoning by now? Holmes, how are you not dead? I hope you don't mind me looking around the room, by the way, before we start talking, because this is extraneous stuff, but this is where they hide some of the Holmes references, as we know. I can talk with my eyes shut, you know. I can believe it. When the deadline's approaching, you sound like a Gatling gun. That reminds me of a dream I had the other day. It was such a funny one. It woke me, actually. I was typing for a whole hour in the pitch black, but it didn't make a single mistake. That's incredible. But then, when it got light, I found that there wasn't any paper in the machine. Now I wonder if I'd actually been typing at all. I think it might just have fallen asleep on the job. Alright, that's everything. Mr. Holmes, take a look at this. Oh, Mr. Sholmes, about this. Shh, not another word. Ah yes, I see. This would be a collar for a breed of miniature canine with a particularly long neck, and for winter use. Actually, it's the armband I always wear that symbolizes my role as a defense lawyer. Precisely, which leads us to but one conclusion. Your arm is, in fact, a particularly long neck of miniature canine. I'm starting to wish I never showed him this now. The man's barking mad. He's funny. Alright. Conversation time. This is the letter that arrived from Japan this morning, by international post. Oh, how lovely. Look at Susie's beautiful writing. I wish I could read it. And how is your judicial assistant faring, may I ask? He's very well, thank you. In fact, according to what she's written, she actually appeared as a lawyer at the Japanese Supreme Court and won a case. Oh, really? Oh, isn't she wonderful? A cut above your good self, my dear fellow. I've won cases too, you know. Apparently, Mr. Natsume appeared in the trial as a witness. Natsume. Natsume. No, I don't recall that name. Of course you do. We helped the man. Twice. You know, in those 2 cases that took place on Briar Road 6 months ago. Ah, the mustached, twitchy man with somewhat feline eyes and a mustache. He didn't have 2 mustaches, Hurley. Yes, who could forget those 2 cases? They made a very deep impression on me. Although I must confess, the details are a little hazy now. A very deep impression they made on you, clearly. So, what was this startling news penned by Miss Susato? Do you remember the case of the haunted lodgings, Mr. Sholmes? Ah, yes. It's very interesting, you know. I don't feel entirely uncertain that a case of that nature did not occur. It's totally forgotten then. Anyway, in her letter, Miss Susato asked that we read over her case notes again and investigate further. Though it took place half a year ago. For what purpose? Because of something that Mr. Natsume said to her, apparently. He suggested that the real reason why she was called back to Japan so suddenly might have something to do with that case of the haunted lodgings. Oh. On Mr. Natsume's return to Japan, Miss Susato's father questioned him about the case, she says. It's something Mr. Natsume said appeared to trouble Professor Mikotoba, prompting him to send that telegram. Oh, that case, yes. It was very strange, wasn't it? Yes. And I had compiled the whole story into a nice neat manuscript ready for publication too. But then Hurley here was all funny about it, remember? He was very mean. That story must not be published, he said, very mysteriously as well. Really? I said that. Are you sure? Do you perhaps know something about it as well, Mr. Sholmes? About why Miss Susato was suddenly told 4 months ago that she had to return to Japan? Interesting. It's been 4 months now since we waved Susie off at Dover. It was such a shock, wasn't it? The way she just suddenly announced that she had to go back to Japan. Indeed it was, due to a telegram she received from her homeland, I believe. That's right, telling her to return urgently. Yes, because her father had passed away. No, it was just said he was suffering from a high fever, the cause of which was unknown. He's not dead. But according to this letter, that news about her father's fever was just a ruse. A ruse? So Susie's daddy lied to her so that she'd make the voyage back home. Why would he do that? I have to admit, I have absolutely no idea. But she believes it's almost certainly related to the case of the haunted lodgings. Summoning her back to Japan so suddenly like that. I wonder what Miss Susato's father is hiding. Hurley, do you know what it's all about? Ah, well, who can say? What? What you said. Please, I have engagements, my dear fellow. My calendar is quite surprisingly full today. And a stringent analysis of the matter would be excessive, I feel, even if I were quite at leisure. So, man the fault in my absence, won't you, Iris? I will, Hurley. Don't worry. See you later. He scuttled off rather quickly there. I think perhaps Professor Mikotoba isn't the only person hiding something here. Soseki-san was involved in 2 cases, but only one of them was forbidden from being published. By of all people, Mr. Sholmes. Aha! I found them at last. Iris, are they... The notes about the case. That's right. Susie and I compiled them together. The case of the haunted lodgings. Do you want to read them, Bruno? Absolutely. Thank you, Iris. I have no idea what secrets could still be hiding in the shadows of this case. But perhaps if I read over the notes again, something might come to light. That's the spirit. And so, Iris and I decided to read over the case notes again together. Everything from what happened to our investigation and that fierce battle in court that followed. Relieving every detail. I just need to find a clue, and I have all the time in the world. Because of course, I'm no longer allowed to practice law in the courts of Great Britain. Huh? Like past that? Past that other case? I wonder why he's barred. Is it because he reviewed, he ended up leaking some of the information in court? That would probably be what got him on the hook, right? I'm guessing, like, if I had to guess. Because he actually played part of the message in court. And sure, nobody deciphered it, but he still ended up leading to some of it being played out loud in court. That would probably be a pretty big black mark. Yes? Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense then. It was 6 months ago. A mysterious incident that unfolded on the wintry streets of London. A young woman was found lying on the snowy pavement of Briar Road with a knife in her back. Fortunately, her life was spared, but she was unconscious for several days following the incident. The fog was thick, and nobody saw her attack her, but by a cruel twist of fate, a visiting Japanese student was walking behind her at the time and was duly arrested. That man was Soseki-san, and the man who effected his arrest was Mr. Sholmes. Believing in our compatriot's innocence, Susato-san and I decided to represent Soseki-san in court. And after a grueling trial of many twists and turns, we finally managed to prove his innocence. Joyful, joyous, jubilant jubilation! Was the man's reaction after the trial, but his jubilant jubilation was short-lived. He received a telegram from Mr. Sholmes the following morning. The victim of the Briar Road stabbing has regained consciousness. Hurry to Bart's at once. So Susato-san and I summoned a hansom and headed immediately to the hospital. Holy shit, that's a big-ass rat! It's alive! It's a live rat. What? It's huge. What is it doing there? There you are at last. Good morning, Mr. Sholmes. I think not. Oh. You're late. What on earth took you so long? Your telegram only arrived at 5 o'clock, Mr. Sholmes, and it's a 20-minute ride to the hospital. That's right, and it's 5:30 now. I think we made very good time. The time is utterly irrelevant. The fact is, I have been waiting for what has felt like an eternity. In point of fact, I myself was awoken at 4 this morning by a telegram boy, and feeling it was somewhat unjust that I alone had been roused at such an hour, I sent one to you. Well, thanks for that. Anyway, you're here now, so... The victim is over there. He's only just regained consciousness. You should introduce yourselves, and I shall observe from here. So that's the lady who was found on the snow-covered pavement with a knife in her back. Her name is... Ah yes, here we are. Miss Green. Okay, that's really distracting me. Heh! A mouse, Mr. Naruhodo! An enormous mouse! Vermin in a hospital? That doesn't seem the best. But it looks like a very healthy specimen, doesn't it? It's very plump. not sure we can say that it's down to the excellence of this facility, if that's what you were thinking. It's very bold, too. It's just sitting out in the open. Is it a pet? I feel like it's probably a pet, right? Ah, this looks like the treatment notes for whoever's occupying this bed. Let's see. Do not permit to run around the hospital. The patient doesn't seem to be here at the moment, so he or she is probably running around the hospital then. Oh dear, how worrying. What's worrying is why they haven't discharged the patient yet. There are all sorts of medicines in this cabinet, look. I'm not sure if it's safe leaving them in reach of everyone like this. Yes, you're right. I can imagine if you were peckish, you might try a whole bottle or two. Well, at least there seems to be a little lock to secure the cabinet doors. I don't imagine that would stop you if you were hungry. I worry that you'd break the lock. Hunger doesn't turn me into a criminal, you know, Mrs. Sato. Look, there's a photograph in this frame here. Oh yes, it's a picture of a young gentleman. He looks to be about the same age as Miss Green, I would say. Perhaps the young woman's a special someone, do you think? My, Mr. Naruhodo. I didn't know you had a sense on matters of the heart. Not in the least. I sincerely said the first thing I thought of. A portrait of herself. This rounded wooden figure isn't the most charming, is it? I don't think that's a decoration, Mr. Naruhodo. It's an artist's mannequin, I believe. He's been practicing sketching the human form in different poses. Really? It's not exactly what you call a typical figure for that purpose, though, is it? No, I suppose not. I confess I've never seen one quite so full-figured before. Well, if you want to draw a full-figured person, it's the right tool for the job. This looks like the patient's treatment notes. Let's see. Do not feed. What is this place, a zoo? You know, I seem to remember seeing an almost identical sign in our local park. For the pigeons, yes. This is a person. Poor woman. I hope she hasn't read this. Or maybe it's meant to be the rat. That must be a bag of Miss Green's personal belongings. She would have been brought directly here after she was found stabbed on the pavement, though. I expect a friend or family member probably brought some things for her. Alright then, let's see what's inside. A change of clothes, no doubt, then. No, Mr. Naruhodo, you must never scrutinize a young maiden's personal belongings. But the young maiden might have chocolates, or biscuits, or caramel. They did not for you, Naruhodo-san. Alright, let's talk to the lady. Good morning. Hello, Ryunosuke Naruhodo, from the Empire of Japan. Oh no, was it your knife that... Are you the man who... No, I'm a lawyer. And I'm Susato Mikotoba. Pleased to meet you. Oh no, was it your knife then? Are you the one? No, I assure you. I'm Mr. Naruhodo's judicial assistant. We heard that you regained consciousness and wanted to come to give you our best wishes. Best wishes? For me? Thank you. I'm Olive Green. I'm an artist. Well, no, that's not right, is it? What I mean is, I'm trying to be an artist. Well, what I really mean is, I desperately want to be an artist. But the truth is, I don't have any talent. I know I don't. It's no wonder I was stabbed in the back. I don't think that's related, actually. Gosh, this young woman seemed to bend over backwards to put herself down. Seeing as we're here, we should ask her about what happened from her perspective, I suppose. Suddenly be struck in the back by a blade as you were walking along the pavement. What a terrible experience you had, Miss Green. It was so cold that day, and the fog was so thick. I couldn't see a thing. That was 4 days ago now, I think. Is that right? Yes, that's right. I'm afraid you've been comatose all that time. But the case has been solved, hasn't it? Well, up in here in the hospital, I mean. Indeed it has, my dear madame. Spectacularly by none other than I, Herlock Sholmes. Mr. Sholmes, as you well know, it was Mr. Naruhodo's hard work and call that solved the case. Are you yet to hear what happened, Miss Green? Yes, I'm afraid so. A gentleman from the police force is supposed to be coming to fill me in shortly. Oh, I see. Me coming around seems to have made everyone frantically busy. I'm so sorry. I should never have regained consciousness. It was selfish of me. Oh no! We're also relieved that you're on the mend, Miss Green. Really, we are. With that kind of attitude, maybe her surname should be Blue, not Green. British humor. So, you're an artist, are you, Miss Green? Oh no! Oh, I couldn't possibly claim that. I'm a fledgling artist at best. I mean, I'm a student of art, really, at the Thorndike Academy of Fine Arts. Oh my, an Academy of Fine Arts. Great Britain is such a wonderful country. Tell me, Miss Green, do you live hereabouts? Oh no, actually. I don't deserve it, but I have a little flat on Brixton Road. I see. How very interesting. Oh no, is it? Brixton is some 10 stops away on the underground from here, and Thorndike Academy is a mere 3-minute walk from Brixton town centre. Does that matter, Mr. Sholmes? Perhaps not. But Briar Road is a far less salubrious part of town by comparison, dealt in by those of inferior means, including the maleficent Mr. Moustache. Inferior means? I suppose Sosaki-san does fit the bill. It struck me as somewhat out of the ordinary for a young fine arts student to be walking in such a district. That's all. What's this? She suddenly clammed up. Mr. Sholmes, you should be ashamed of yourself, prying into a young maiden's private affairs. Oh dear me, do forgive me. If you don't mind. I'm being discharged shortly, so I need to pack up my things. Oh, yes, of course. We won't keep you. Thank you so much, Miss Green. Is there a Mr. Narrowfodder here? Mr. Narrowfodder? Narrowfodder, no. Well, if you're looking for Naruhodo, the lawyer, that's me, but... Ah, Mr. Narrowfodder, good. This is for you. It's a message from Mr. Saucy Nutsmack. Mr. Nutsmack? Sent a message. To me. Well, why would a policeman be delivering a message from Mr. Nutsmack? Exactly. What's going on? What's a Scotland Yard constable doing playing delivery boy this time in the morning? Ah, what are you waiting for? Let me see that. Oh. Well, this is most unexpected. Is something wrong, Mr. Sholmes? Is something wrong, Mr. Sholmes, he says. Have you not seen this note? No, how could I have? It would seem that London's criminals have no intention of letting the great detective rest. A new case calls. A case of murder, no less. You must depart at once. Murder? Kowaka, time is of the essence. But the trouble is, we've yet to read Mr. Natsume's note. I was thinking we ought to pay him a visit in his lodgings once we did. That would be entirely convenient. Convenient? What do you mean? It's all here in the note, my dear fellows. The murder we must investigate took place at Mr. Moustache's lodgings. Wait, what? Oh, how fair... I don't know how to pronounce that word. Fiacre? At once. It was only yesterday that Sosaki-san was in court and we were dispelling doubts about his innocence. And now, the very next day, there's a murder at the man's own address. He may very well be the unluckiest man alive. Or so it seemed to us at the time, but we were soon to discover it was worse than we thought. So I guess Sosaki-san is the Maya Fey of this game, in that he's the one who keeps getting accused of murder. Ah! The Shakespeare guy, he's dead! What on earth? Oh my, the gentleman is deceased without question. He's dead! Locum student Mr. Naruhodo Esquire! Mr. Natsume! Oh, why? Why is this happening? Why to me? I've only just got out of court! Yesterday! I was finally home after 2 days of misery! And then I wake up the next day to this! No early bird should catch a worm like this! Yo, fool! Worm without wiggle! I see you in high spirits again this morning, Mr. Mustache. Ah! Not the horrible Herlock Sholmes! Shoo! Shove off! Show you out the door! I never invited you! Mr. Sholmes came here with us. I'm quite sure he'll be able to help you, Mr. Natsume. I am entirely at your disposal, Mr. Mustache. What can I do for you? Here they are, already. The busybodies. Ah, Inspector Gregson. What a pleasant surprise. Pleasant, is it? It gives me heartburn every time I see your face at the crime scene, Jones. Huh? I deduce, Inspector, that your heartburn is a result of your excessive consumption of fried food. Good morning, Inspector. This is a crime scene. Don't you go touching anything. Or, good morning to you too, Sunshine. So, like, is he under... Wait, could he be under arrest again, though? He was in... Like, he only just got back, right? Is he the suspect? Are we defending Mr. Natsume again? Or is he just a witness? We should probably check up on him first. What a terrible thing to have happened. It's only been 3 days since I was arrested for the incident on the pavement outside. And then, having finally regained my freedom, it starts happening. All over again. Endless existence of excruciating experiences. So, the victim lived here on the ground floor, and your room is just 1 story up, is it? Yes, that's right. In a way, we were neighbors, I suppose. So did you know the victim? Were you friends? What's the matter with Soseki-san now? It was an innocent enough question, wasn't it? Why does he seem so shaken by it? Well, suppose he wasn't a complete stranger. But did he ever invite me to his room? Never! On my honor, I swear it! What an extreme reaction. You're probably wishing you'd never asked now, aren't you, Ms. Naruhodo? When we found him here, I felt wretched, which is why I sent word asking you to come. True, that inspector over there! Alright, Mr. Gregson. This is before we caught you covering up secrets. State secrets on behalf of Her Majesty's Secret Service? Right. So he's not quite that mad at us yet. Although I imagine he'd be pretty mad at us post then. If he even still is an inspector and hasn't been demoted or something. So, Inspector, what was the victim's name? Who was he? Mr. William Shamspear? Huh, he was a lodger here. As you can probably tell, he was an actor. A bit of a dead loss as it happens. Or, just dead. Mr. Shamspear. He was a landlord, old Mr. Gerdup and the other lodger, Mr. Natsume, who found him. The fella didn't rise at his usual hours, so Gerdup got worried and kicked the door down. But, doesn't Mr. Gerdup have a bad leg? Yeah, you're right there. It was that jittery Japanese hunchback over there who actually did the kicking. Really? Soseki-san. The victim was pretty hard up, it seems. He'd done some time inside for petty crimes. He had no money, no place to go, and no friends. His only acquaintances were the people in this house. Miserable life, and a miserable end to it. So, what exactly is Mr. Natsume still doing here? He's not involved in the investigation, so shouldn't you have sent him away from the crime scene? Well, I'm not saying it's because the fella looks odd or anything, but he acts suspicious. I thought it would be prudent to take a statement of the culprit. I mean, cohabitor. You nearly said culprit there, didn't you? Oh dear. Mr. Natsume appears to be under suspicion again. It certainly seems that way. He does just come across as such an odd fellow, doesn't he? Oh man, how unfortunate. Anyway, I can't see much until the coroner gets here. But I don't think the fella's been a goner that long. The body's still warm. Even if the inspector would allow it, I don't think I could bring myself to touch a dead body. Well, we can look at him anyway. Oi! I said hands off! You're gonna mess up my crime scene. Oh, no, I just wanted to look, that's all. No chance! I know you're kind. You'll mess it up just by looking at it. Someone's in a bad mood. There's certainly some bad air here, isn't there? Alright, it sounds like I better talk to the inspector first and try to curry some favor. Well, we've done that, so... Why is he Jojo posing? Alright, Sholmes, what's up? Mr. Sholmes, what are you doing? Ha! You need only observe to know it, my dear fellow. Investigating, naturally. There's nothing natural about that pose. Mr. Sholmes, have you made some miraculous discovery? Patience, my dear madame, patience. I've not been here in this room 5 minutes. So far, all I've managed to deduce is what actually happened. My goodness! But isn't that everything we need to know, Mr. Sholmes? Now that you propose the idea, I believe one could indeed see it that way. At the present time, I have managed to draw 2 incontrovertible conclusions. The first, that there was a physical struggle here last night in which the victim fought for his life. Ah! Ah! Mr. Notsume, what's wrong? Is something that Mr. Sholmes said significant somehow? No. Don't mind me. Forget I was here. Oh no. You were here, weren't you, Soseki-san? Because you're rehydrated. And my second conclusion is that there was a poison lingering in the air last night that passed the victim's lips. Nonsense! Alright, Mr. Natsume. Why are you reacting so extremely to Mr. Sholmes' deductions? No. Please! Pretend I'm not here! Invisible! Ineffable! Inscrutable! Insignificant! Impossible to ignore. You must tell us everything, Mr. Sholmes. Spare no detail. But of course, let the theatrical tragedy before us be unraveled by my great deductions, presented for your pleasure in 2 acts. The first some truly astounding great deductions from Mr. Sholmes in the past. No doubt this will be no exception, but miracles will unfold before our eyes this time. So, my dear fellows, for your delight and wonder, let the curtain rise. For Herlock Sholmes, Logic and Reasoning Spectacular, Act 1. The game is afoot. Careful observation of the victim reveals to us the events that transpired in this disconsolate room last night. Foam at the mouth of the deceased clearly indicates the use of poison. Next to the victim, we notice a large dining plate which contains, you observe, 1/2 of a sizable bar of soap. Meaningful and beautiful. Why is this soap set so purposefully upon the dish? Like the victim's last supper, in fact. Yes! Could it be that the man was about to eat it? Of course, the fork reveals the answer. It appears that the young man's appetite was his undoing. Taking up arms in the form of his cutlery, the victim engaged in a deadly battle for his life. Yet the struggle against his hunger was in vain, for in the end he couldn't resist devouring the slippery feast. But London's foul soap was besmirched by foul poison. Yes, the victim's life was claimed by poison that tainted the contents of the plate. The soap and the letter about the young man's mouth are too perfectly matched to ignore. The cause of death was clearly intoxication due to excessive ingestion of foul soap. Though personally, I have a greater interest in the taste of foul candlewax, of course. Swallow shampoo. I'm probably gonna die. It wasn't that much. I'll probably be fine. The cause of death identified, we proceed to Act 2, where we ponder the next question. Was this suicide or murder? The audience will recall the death occurred during the victim's last supper. Did a man dine and die alone? The single teacup suggests the answer. To draw a conclusion on such meager evidence would be foolish, however, certainly. The careful criminal could have absconded with his own cup to cover his tracks. Well, allow me to lift the veil of doubt, my dear fellow. Indeed, what reveals the answer, of course, is the broken lock. Though forced open now, at the time of the incident, his door was locked. And the sole key was in the victim's pocket. In other words, when the victim consumed the poison, he must have been alone. Alone of his inferior soap, from whence wafted an inferior scent. And with that acrid aroma lingering in the air, the victim met his end, in tragic solitude. He could take comfort only in the fact that his soul was well cleansed on its way to the hereafter. What a cutting sense of British humor you have there, Mr. Sholmes. Thus concludes the final act of Sherlock Sholmes' Great Deduction. Nom. There's just one thing, Mr. Sholmes. You are disposed to identifying just one thing, aren't you, Mr. Naruhodo? Pray, what concerns you? Well, no matter how hungry he was, do you really think the man would have eaten soap? It is quite apparent that his man has barely a penny to his name. It is a curious thing, but to one so destitute, soap can suddenly appear quite irresistibly appetizing. How extraordinary! In truth, I have tried a little soap myself in the past. You've eaten it, you mean? My dear fellow, it was some time ago now. My postulation was that it would cleanse my gut. And did it? As I writhed in agony on the floor and spilled the contents of my stomach. Yes, I believe it did. The experience taught me a valuable lesson. Soap is quite poisonous. It has an unpleasant taste and leads to great discomfort. In summary, I cannot recommend it. Believe me, I wouldn't eat it even if you did. There's something that troubles me as well, actually. Oh? What's that? It's risen up to me. Ah! I couldn't help noticing him shuddering and quivering out of the corner of my eye. Almost as if Mr. Sholmes' deductions touched a nerve somehow. Nonsense. Well, that clenched teeth episode didn't last. I think, judging by Miss Anatomy's reaction, the Great Detective's deductions may need some gentle corrections in order to reach the actual truth. Yes, Mr. Sholmes' observations and deductions are sometimes a little too sharp. He has a tendency to hit the nail on the side of the head and drive it in at an obtuse angle. When he does that, it falls to us to straighten things out. Alright then, let's see what we can do. Yes, we must pick out the key words in Mr. Sholmes' quite brilliant deductions, and discreetly exchange them for something that makes a little more sense. If we can do that, I'm sure we will arrive at what Mr. Sholmes meant to say in the first place. In that case, are you ready for the second performance of the day? Once again, my dear fellows, for your continued delight and wonder, let the curtain rise. For Sherlock Sholmes, Logic and Reasoning Spectacular, Act 1. Alright. Poison is probably in the cup. Okay. Man was about to eat it, of course. The fork reveals the answer. Well, you can't deny that a fork implies the man was eating something, or about to eat something. Yes, that's true. If I were to decide to eat some soap, I should prefer to use a fork than to attempt it with chopsticks. And of course, only half of the bar of soap is left on the plate. But might there not be some other explanation? Something material that proves whether or not the man really ate some soap. victim really eat some soap? No. The other piece is right here. Look! There's more soap on the floor here. Mr. Shamspeare must have really loved the stuff. Let's not jump to conclusions, Mr. Naruhodo. Look closely at the soap. You see that it would fit together perfectly with the half bar on the table. What the? How can that be? I think that they are two halves of the same bar that broke apart. Let's take a look at the teacup as well, I guess. You think he was drinking tea with soap? The cup's empty, so there's no way of knowing. Ah, how about this for an idea? Perhaps the cup was full of water, and he was dissolving soap in it so he could cope as much sound as possible. Please remember that he may not actually have been the soap cover he's made out to be. Funny. Now look at his hat. Oh, look at the fork. I suppose you eat soap with a fork, would you? I don't think it's a question of which implement you use. You shouldn't eat soap, full stop. But then why? Why doesn't the man have a fork in his hand? Oh dear, I understand your frustration, Mr. Naruhodo, but please don't take it out on me. The point is, if we decide the man used his fork to eat the soap, we wouldn't be changing Mr. Sholmes' deduction. So we really ought to consider some other clues. Okay, yeah, well.
Take that!
Could it be that the man was about to eat it? Of course, the other piece of soap reveals the answer. It being the other half of the soap on the table. In short, the victim was not eating soap at all. But it's obvious, really. But no depth of hunger could drive any man to attempt to eat soap. Even I, with my unquenchable thirst for practical knowledge, took only a single bite. But that begs the question of how the man was poisoned, because there's no sign of any food on the table. An excellent observation, Mr. Naruhodo, and one that furnishes us with the answer we seek. But London's foul soap is besmirched by foul poison. Okay. Mr. Sholmes is still pushing the soap argument then. Perhaps he's suggesting the man licked the soap rather than ate it. If soap in London is that poisonous, I don't think I want to be washing my hands with it. There are no signs of any food in this room at all. Of course, food isn't the only thing that passes people's lips, is it? Almost certainly the teacup, I guess. Yes, a western vessel for the serving of infusions or dry tea leaves. It's a teacup, Mr. Naruhodo, as you well know. Stop putting on airs. And it's empty. So we've already established that the victim wasn't eating soap when he died. However, there's significant evidence to suggest that he was drinking tea. My thoughts exactly.
Take that!
Yes, the victim's life was claimed by poison that tainted the teacup. Indeed, cups have been the vessel of choice for practicing poisoners over the centuries. And it would appear that this victim drank every last drop. There's no sign of food anywhere in this room. Which leads us to the immutable conclusion. The cause of death was clearly intoxication due to the ingestion of poison contained in the teacup. Alright, part 2. The man dine and die alone, single pickup suggests the answer. Ah, the western vessel for infused hot drinks again. It's already featured heavily in our deduction so far. Yes, we can imagine that shortly before his death, Mr. Shamsey was having a drink of tea. There would be nothing remarkable about that. But what troubles me is Mr. Natsume's reaction when he heard Mr. Sholmes suggest it. It's more to this deduction that it seems. We must closely examine the scene of the crime again for some more clues. Aha. So that's why we couldn't angle it that way, huh? It's another western vessel for infused. It's a teacup! And it too is empty. Given that he's actually holding this one in his hand, we can assume that this is the cup from which Mr. Shamspeare was actually drinking. But if that's the case, this changes everything. Everything we've deduced up to now is turned on its head. I have a bad feeling about this. I almost don't want to say it. Yes, I know exactly how you feel.
Take that!
The demand dine and die alone. This other teacup suggests the answer. Yes, there were 2 teacups in this room all along. Ah. In other words, this is a strong indication that at the victim's last supper, there was a guest present. At the very least, we can say now with certainty that somebody else was here in this room last night, taking tea to the victim. What are you talking about? Utterly, unbelievably, unjustly unreasonable. To draw a conclusion on such meager evidence would be foolish, however, certainly. Good job, my dear fellow. You know who exactly was in this room at the time of the victim's death? Indeed, what reveals the answer, of course, is broken lock, which is not the case. I'm not sure I like where this deduction is going now. I'm afraid it's too late to go back to the Hellcon days of eating too much soap. But the identity of the guest who was in here last night when the victim passed away is something I have a very bad feeling about. Well, we can try to ignore your feelings, or we cannot ignore the truth, Mr. Naruhodo. No, I suppose not. Have a look around again. It's empty. Empty of liquid. But full of air. That makes you think, doesn't it? It makes me think that you're full of hot air. You should be thinking about who else was in the room at the time. Bother. Tosato-san's cryptic response is cleverer than my original riddle. At first glance, it seems that the only things in this room are the makeshift stage and the costumes. I overlooked these 3 books initially. I wonder what they are. Let's see. The titles read The Picture of Monsieur Lecour, Canterbury Yearnings, and A Meal for Gabriel. Wait, I'm sure I've heard those titles before. It could just be an incredible coincidence, but they're the exact same 3 books that Mr. Natsume purchased the other day. What? Yes, on the day of that unfortunate incident when the screen was stabbed. Soseki-san had just been to a bookshop and bought them, that's right. And now those 3 titles are here in this room of the victim. Yet Mr. Natsume claims never to have been here before. What does this mean, do you think? I really don't know what to make of it. Rip. Man's about to be arrested 2 days in a row.
Take that!
Indeed. What reveals the answer, of course, is the power of familiar books. Quite so. It's no mere coincidence that these 3 titles appear in this room. It's the link to the truth. Ah! Mr. Natsume, you purchased these books 4 days ago at a second-hand bookshop. That's just a coincidence! In that case, you will be able to bring the same 3 titles in your own room, will you not? This very moment. No! Never! Non-negotiable! If you can't bring your own copies here, it proves that these 3 books are in fact yours. Having purchased the books 4 days ago and returned to your lodgings, you were arrested the very next day. So you could conceivably have brought the books here on that evening, but you never mentioned that. In other words, you could have only brought these 3 books here to the victim's room. Last night, having returned to your lodgings after the trial concluded at the Old Bailey. In short, there is only one possible conclusion. The victim died here in this room last night as a result of poisoning. And that same night, the victim had a visitor. And that visitor was you, Mr. Soseki Natsume. Thus concludes the final act of Herlock Sholm's Great Deduction. Oh no. I guess we're never gonna get a copy of Wagahaya wa Neko de Aru then. Case 1, 2-1 was a lie. He actually never made it to Japan to publish his book. Not again! Not again! Not again! Not again! Well then, Mr. Natsume. It would appear you're gonna have to accompany me down to the yard. Again. But wait! Hold your horses! Yes? Door! Key! Locked! Entry! Exit! Entirely impossible! He's so flustered he's being even stranger than normal. What? You think that's an alibi? You could have just made a copy. What? You live in the same building after all. You'd have plenty of opportunity, I'm sure. But... Misery me! Sorry, sir. You'll get your chance to give your side of the story later. The facts speak for themselves, Mr. Mustache. You horrible Herlock Sholmes! He really has found himself an arch rival now, hasn't he? Come now, no dilly-dallying. Outside, there's a carriage waiting. Welcome, student Mr. Naruhodo Esquire. I never imagined I'd be in this position again, but... You have to help me! Please! Please! I'm innocent! Alright, I understand. We'll come to your cell later and talk about it. And one more thing. Oh, yes? My poor little kitty cat. Please give him his breakfast for me! Poor Soseki-san. And so... his evil curse still apparently unbroken. Soseki-san found himself once again the prime suspect in the case of murder. Thanks to the incriminating deduction of the great detective. My dear fellow, that honor belongs to you. It is our fault, actually, yeah. You're not wrong. Well, at least that means Inspector Gregson is no longer here. We can examine the crime scene in more detail now. Yes, that's right. Ah, and of course. What? Have you forgotten what the inspector mentioned before? It was the landlord, Mr. Garadab, who discovered Mr. Shamspear. Ah, Mr. John Garadab, yes. I expect we could find him in his sitting room on the top floor as usual. Right, we must remember to go and talk to him later then. Okay, crime scene investigation. What's this box? It looks like a fuse box, but do they have electricity? They're using candles for most of this stuff there, so I don't know. Might be a fuse box. May not be. It's a meter of some kind. Ah, this is a gas meter. Ah, it's gas. Ah. It seems that in this district, residents pay for gas as they use it of coins. Ah, I see. Yes, now that you pointed it out. I can see that there's a slot just here that looks like it would take a coin. So you mean if you put a coin in here? That's right. That would buy you about 2 hours of gas for lights and heating. So, if you were a poor person with no money, you had to sleep in the freezing cold. Yes, or if you were a scatterbrain with no change because you forgot to exchange your money at the bank. Thank goodness there's no meter in our office. Yeah, I heard about those. Gas meters. Yeah, actually I should have thought about that. It's connected to the gas lamp. Actually, I am completely losing track here. When was electricity brought to as a consumer product for homes? Let me see. I'm curious. Well, we are in the right time period, I guess. 1882 was when the first coal-fired public power station in London was created. So they do have electricity. It's just it may not be super widespread, but this is the correct time frame for electricity to start being spread around, yeah. Yeah, makes sense. So they've had coal-fired power plants for about just under 20 years now. Okay. I had to satiate my curiosity, chat. Don't mind me. Alright, what's this? What's this? It looks like part of an envelope, I think. Yes, I think you may be right. Perhaps it was torn off when the letter was opened. Is that significant? Well, it's a little out of place, perhaps. When you look around the room, there's no sign of a letter, or the rest of the envelope, in fact, is there? Ah, she's right. And yet here we have the torn off end of an envelope. It just strikes me as unusual. I agree. We better take this just in case. Enter into the court record. Look at these extravagant bright costumes. Somehow they look out of place in this room, with its grim shady goings-ons. This one looks like a king's attire. A king? I've always dreamt of being a king. Oh, but I think it'd be more suited to a feudal lord. A daimyo or such like. With a chonmagi top knot, every Japanese man wishes he has a chonmagi. Oh, you look wonderful with one, and you already have the sword. Can you imagine what would happen if I walked around the streets of London with a chonmagi and a sword? Hats. There's not much on these shelves, is there? Just this wine glass and bottle. And both of them are cracked. Yes, not much use, are they? What's the matter? Oh, I was just reminded of the Reaper, that's all. Prosecutor Lord Van Zeeks. Yes, he's so reckless with his wine glasses. I was thinking it's a waste and that he should donate some to the needy. You can suggest it next time we meet. This is a gas wall light, isn't it? It must be connected to a gas pipe in the wall. Gas lights, a gas stove. London really is a city of gas. But now that I think about it, Mr. and Mrs. Scarab had an open fire on the top floor, didn't they? Oh yes, you're right. I don't recall seeing a gas stove up there. Well, I much prefer a real fire anyway. It's so much cozier. It also smells less bad. This is some sort of makeshift stage, I think, isn't it? Where does the audience sit, though, for nightly Shakespeare performances? Actors aspiring to the great stage must practice their art, Mr. Naruhodo, with or without an audience. In fact, on a related note, perhaps you should set up a mock bench for the defense in your office. What? Then you could practice your art every single day. I'll think about it, if you promise to don a beard and play the role of the judge. Well, if that will help you achieve your goal. This I have to see. Alright. Anything else? Well, the window, I guess. As you've seen from the outside, the window is completely bricked up. A vestige of the former window tax that Britons had to pay. What strange things they used to tax in Great Britain. I mean, making people pay for the number of windows they had in their property. It's extraordinary. It's heartbreaking to think of the poor having to block up your windows just to avoid an unaffordable tax. Oh. What is it, Miss Susato? If you look closely, a number of the bricks are loose. Oh yes, it looks as though an amateur has broken out a few of them just here. Was it Mr. Shamsier who did it, I wonder, being the lodger renting this room? Ah, look at this, Mr. Naruhodo. On the outside, there's a little ledge. And there's something on it. What, outside? Can we go outside to look at it? It looks like more soap. Like, even more soap. Ah, one of the teacups that Mr. Shansfield and his guests drank from last night. But don't go drinking from them, Mr. Naruhodo. There's bitter poison inside. I'm not planning on drinking any, don't worry. Anyway, the cups are both empty. That's true. So, one was Mr. Shamspear's, and the other must have been the cup that Mr. Natsume was drinking from. But Soseki-san wasn't poisoned, of course. Perhaps we should take these so we can examine them in more detail later. Yeah, we still have a receipt. And this one. Whoever opened this envelope didn't bother with a letter opener or scissors, did they? Yes, whoever opened it was clearly someone with an unrefined temperament. And judging from the angle of the ripped hair, the person in question must have been right-handed. Miss Susato! I think perhaps someone's been reading too much of the Adventures of Sherlock Holmes. You can never read too much of it, Mr. Naruhodo. Never! This must be the cup that Mr. Shamsky was drinking from then. It's stained on the inside. Tea does that, I'm afraid. Even green tea. Oh really? I never noticed before. You never noticed? Well, I never leave it in the cup long enough to leave a mark. I like to gulp it down. Drink tea while it's hot. That's the Japanese way, isn't it? Oh dear. So many people seem to have the wrong idea about our culture. And most of them are Japanese. This is the teacup from which Mr. Natsume was drinking. Yes. Unlike the other one, the inside of the cup is completely clean. I suppose he must have drunk the contents before the tea had a chance to leave a mark. I always gulp it down too. Sorry, Mr. Naruhodo. Well, if you just sip it little by little, it goes cold. Clearly, I shall have to instruct you in the proper way to take tea. There's no tea ring on the inside of Mr. Natsume's cup. Okay, so that's it too. Yeah, that's a difference. What about the chips in the cup? And on the underside... Yeah, okay, that's about it. Alright, chat, give me 1 second. Panel on my table is loose, I need to go retighten it. I don't know if you guys heard that. So my microphone is on the table, so it may have transmitted that sound. But yeah, okay. Alright, let's look at the body. Oh, the poor man. So young to die. Do you suppose it was a very painful death, being poisoned as he was? I don't know. All we can do now is hope that he'll be reborn to a better life. Yes, I suppose you're right. I wonder... Do you think that putting our hands together in the Japanese prayer will help a British soul? Sorry? I made sure I had a reference at the ready for just such an occasion as this, actually. This book is entitled The Beginner's Guide to Praying for the Departed, the British Way. I'll just reread it now. One moment. There's quite a spine on that book, isn't there? Alright, spider web, stage. There's still more to this. Brr, it's so cold outside. You can feel it through this gap. It did snow all last night, it would be cold. But more importantly, what is it on the ledge out there? What are those snow-covered lumps? It's more bars of soap. Soap? What are bars of soap doing lined up on the ledge outside the window? I have no idea. The pair of them look rather charming like that. Still, that's very strange, isn't it? Bars of soap lined up outside the window. I think perhaps you should take one. There are two, after all. Oh dear. I suppose we could. Oh, what's this? Look here at the soap. Ah. You see, in the middle there, there's a patch that's a different color. It's sort of transparent, but some sort of fancy design, I suppose. Only in Great Britain. It looks like the Hinomaru flag of Japan, doesn't it? How wonderful. It's probably a very expensive brand. Expensive? And what's it doing in this ramshackle old room? A cheap bar of soap. Yeah, I can't even begin to theorize what happened here. No idea what the soap has to do with this sort of stuff. This part is a different color. It's an exquisite design, isn't it? Trust the British to turn a boring bar of soap into something special. I quite like it. It reminds me of the Hinamaru design of the Japanese flag. I expect this is rather expensive soap. That doesn't seem likely, given who it belongs to. Yeah, nothing else. Well, yeah, you don't have enough information to go on yet. Don't overthink it yet. Yeah, I know. We're very early on in the case. I'm just like talking out loud that like, all the evidence is pretty disconnected, and I can't really make any theories right now. Although I guess this is about the right shape for you to put a teacup on. Looks like you're having a good snoop around, eh? Inspector Gregson, back so soon. After I threw the little Japanese fella in the clink, I went and reported this to the investigation division. 5 minutes time, this place will be cordoned off by the yard. Oh, I see. Well, we'd better be leaving then. Well, Mr. Natsume must be feeling very low being back in the cell again so soon. I'm sure. We should probably go, and... That's creepy. That was low-key creepy. We've never had something in the background move during a dialogue box, have we? In this entire scenario. Sorry, like in this entire franchise. We've never had something move on screen in the background while a dialogue box was on. What there? What's wrong, Mr. Naruhodo? Ah! Out! Out, brief candle! Life's but a walking shadow, a poor player. That struts and frets his hour upon the stage, and then is heard no more. Now, how soundeth the next part? It is a tale, told by an idiot full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. Did nobody check for a pulse? Huh. Indeed! Oh, happy day. Huh? What? Walking Dead! It's always Macbeth, yes. Aye. The fella isn't dead at all. What was that nonsense he was saying, though? I think... Yes, it was from William Shakespeare's Macbeth. A soliloquy from Act 5, Scene 5. Shakespeare. So it was that the victim, Mr. William Shakespeare, came back to life. If the man had indeed been poisoned, it transpired that it hadn't killed him. He was taken by emergency carriage to a nearby hospital for treatment. Oh. Oh, okay, so we're still going into crime that was attempted murder, huh? Alright, got it. And Inspector Gregson evicted us from the scene of this crime. Whatever that now was. So the charge is now attempted murder, I guess. Whatever do you think will happen now? Good question. What a strange situation for Mr. Natsume. Arrested for murder, but then the victim comes back to life. I think perhaps the victim was never dead in the first place. It seems very likely that Mr. Shamspeare did consume poison, as we deduced. But was it an accident, attempted suicide, or attempted murder? Until the truth can be established, I imagine the police will keep Mr. Natsume in custody. I suppose so. Let's hope it doesn't come to anything more than a night in the cells. Oh, what's this? What's that man doing over there? It looks like he's trying to see into Soseki-san's lodgings. There's something wrong, Mr. Naruhodo. Excuse me, could we have a word? Ah! I Jojo pose as well. He just ran off. I feel sure that I've seen that man somewhere before. Where was it? I do too, but I don't remember. Well, I guess we can look at the ledge from outside. With the exception of the top floor where Mr. and Mrs. Garrett live, all the windows are bricked up. Yes, that's because of an old window tax that was charged on the number of windows the property had. In order to pay less tax, the poorer members of society filled in many of their windows. But the tax has since been abolished, hasn't it? So the windows could all be opened up again, surely. Unfortunately, it would appear that the residents of this district can't afford to pay to have the work done. Yes, that is a sad state of affairs. Especially for people like poor Miss Natsume who have to live all cooped up in a windowless room. I suppose that's the price you pay for living in very cheap accommodation. It all seems rather pointless when you put it like that. Oh, we can't look at the soap from outside? The Garrett household and Mr. Natsume's lodgings are in a prominent position there in the corner. Sometimes when I look at the building, I can't help feeling that it's at a bit of a slant. It does rather look as though it would collapse in even the smallest earthquake, doesn't it? And isn't it supposed to be haunted as well? I think I might have a hunch as to why Soseki-san is such a hunchback. What's with that bicycle? There always seems to be a bicycle outside the Garrett residence. I read that bicycles are extremely popular all over Great Britain at the moment, in fact. That one seems very warped though, especially the front wheel. Is that to make it more of a challenge to ride, do you think? No, I'm afraid that may be a result of the rider's incompetence. For the front wheel to be so badly warped, I'm afraid the rider might have been similarly afflicted. Then, there's a good chance Mr. Natsume has been practicing on this bicycle, I think. Oh dear, I fear you may be right. London's blanketed in fog again today, and the sky is covered in cloud. But if you look carefully in the distance, you can just make out the Crystal Tower being built. Ah, the Crystal Tower, yes. The centerpiece of the Great Exhibition that's to open in 6 months' time. Everyone's talking about the Great Exhibition of London at the moment, it seems. Well, it's to be the largest event of its kind anywhere in the world, with technology and scientists from all over. I can't wait for it myself. Do you think visiting students in the Far East like us would be granted entry? The last great exhibition that was held in London had more than 6 million visitors, it seems. And this time, the British are determined to make it an even bigger success to outdo the Paris Exposition. I see. That's an incredible number of people. And if so many people are expected to attend, we should easily be able to slip in unnoticed. There's always the honest approach of buying tickets at the main entrance, Mr. Naruhodo. Why has somebody built this snowman on some sort of pedestal, do you think? That's not a pedestal, Mr. Naruhodo. That's part of the snowman's body. Really? But it already has a perfectly good body. Well, it's true that British snowmen are usually made of 2 balls of snow. Perhaps this is a foreigner. And now we're looking at him as if he's strange. Poor man. I know how he feels. If anything, it's Japanese and British 2-ball snowmen that are the strange ones, isn't it? After all, real people do have 3 sections. Head, torso, and legs. Do you ever think that perhaps you think about things too much? Well, that's just this game in a nutshell, eh? He's spending so much time in it, he'll have to start calling the place home soon. Oof. Alright, let's go see the Gyarados then. Fancy seeing you lot again. Here we are again. The eccentric landlord's eccentric top floor abode. We're here because Mr. Gyarados the one who discovered the incident this morning, don't forget. Ah, you chaps, eh? Yes, good morning, sir. Thank you for your cooperation in court yesterday. It was quite a trial. As much from Mr. Gyarados as anyone, really. Came straight back here after all the business at the Bailey yesterday. Didn't expect to wake up to more bally nonsense this morning. I wonder if you wouldn't mind telling us exactly what happened, Mr. Gyarados. Yes. I suppose you'd like to know all about the dead loss of an active trap in the ground floor room. Those were exactly Inspector Gregson's words, weren't they? Okay, well, here we are again. Here you go. Mr. Garda, gotta show you this. For quite a couple of days, as you can imagine. I'm afraid I'm rather tired. Haven't really got the energy in the old eyeballs, to be honest with you. Some other time then. Fair. Okay, so, well, we can't show him anything. Can we look at his medals again, though? Good to see Mr. Gardo's Medal of Honor still proudly displayed on the wall. The inscription reads, "For distinguished participation," if you remember. Yes, I remember. Because I remember thinking even I might stand a chance of picking up honors like that. Wouldn't know what to look at me now, perhaps, but I had my devil may care days, you know. Devil may care? What did you get up to? Well, on the pause now, of course. And best left there. Best not? I want to know now. There's a single apron drying under the enormous cannon-shaped clothes horse, look. No, Mr. Naruhodo. That's a real cannon. Devil may cry! I knew that. I was just testing you. Piece of history, that is. Seen plenty of action on the battlefield, I can tell you. Now the old girl and I are just enjoying the peace and quiet of retirement together. And of course, should come in handy if the enemy decided to launch an attack on me. Is there a war going on that I don't know about? That's your military uniform, isn't it, Mr. Garda? Well, ceremonial garb, yes. Been hanging on the wall ever since my retirement bash. Not in active service now, you know. Doesn't mean much to me anymore. You could have the old thing if you wanted it. Well, it might suit Lord Van Zeeks, perhaps. An overly ostentatious outfit like this could be just what he needs. Very tactful, Mr. Sato. Very tactful indeed. I'm pretty sure that's the exact description they used to describe Edgeworth's outfit. Oh, a copy of Rand's magazine. The Adventures of Herlock Sholmes is being read all over London. Isn't it wonderful? Naturally, one asks oneself if such a singular detective could really exist. But having met the chap, it's undeniable. He is most certainly singular. Singularly dangerous. That's genuine public opinion for you, Mr. Sato. Perhaps it should be reflected in the stories. Make no mistake, Mr. Naruhodo, I intend to snuff out the sort of public opinion we just heard, personally. I'm starting to see where Mr. Sholmes' untainted reputation comes from now. You look very dashing in your uniform there, Mr. Garda. Ah, that old portrait, eh? Drawn by an art student who used to rent a room downstairs. Oh, you look so wonderfully young and courageous, and strong. Yes, well, the chap presented to me one day and asked if I could let him off the month's rent in return. Oh, I see. So, you did, presumably? Ballywell did not. Oh. A portrait is a portrait, a rent is rent. Eh? And yet it's still there proudly on the wall. You know what that screen is hiding now? The aftermath of the fiery altercation the other day. I don't suppose I'll be able to clear that mess up for some time now. Oh dear. This must be a very difficult situation for you. I'll say. People talk about twists of fate and whatnot. But this is a twist and a half. A rotten show all around. He's clearly struggling with everything that's happened. Yeah. I gotta look at all this stuff because it's rare that you get to look at like a scene after everything's been revealed in a mystery, you know? There's an impressive collection of cakes on that fancy silver cake stand there. I feel sure that it was full of cakes when you first investigated in here as well. Yes, quite right. Haven't touched it since. Haven't done much at all, really, since it all happened. Time's rather stood still for me, you know? Oh. Time has stood still. Now that's an interesting phrase. I might be able to use that excuse when I'm next supposed to be tidying the office. You could just tidy up, Mr. Naruhodo. These shelves look like they've just been completely torn apart by a wild beast. Reminds me of the Battle of Meiwan, don't you know? Ah, the experiences of a seasoned veteran. Enemy had us surrounded on all sides. We really thought we were done for the whole Valley Company. We were taking a real pounding from their cannons, so all we could do was run for our lives. Oh, I thought that story was going in a different direction, actually. Well, the whole experience taught me one thing, I can tell you. When you're done for, you're really done for. Ugh. That's not what a lawyer who often finds himself under fire wants to hear. There's a good view of the wintry East End from up here. It's an oppressively grey scene. There's really nothing comparable in Japan. And down below, Briar Road, partly blanketed in snow. The pavement where Miss Plummer's Green was struck in the back by that knife. Thinking about it, this is the only room in the building that actually has a window to the outside world. Sometimes, Great Britain really does like a strange land. It does seem like a strange land, doesn't it? I suppose all foreign cultures seem strange at first. Imagine how an Englishman would feel on arriving in Japan and seeing people with a chon monkey top knot. Well, that's a good point. Ah yes, those enormous mortar shells. It's quite something, seeing them up close, isn't it? Didn't you say something about firing them into the barracks, Mr. Garrett? Ah, you remember, do you? Just a little mishap that occurred during training one day. What are you doing firing on your own men? The captain bellowed at me. I'm not surprised. A little mishap doesn't really do it justice, does it? Well, one has these little incidents when one's a hot-headed young private. Perhaps I should put some evidence that resulted from one of my little mishaps on display. Oh, does the great lawyer, like the great detective, want to exhibit some trophies of his finest moments? Okay. We're done with the fluff. We can do the conversation now. It must have been a real shock for you this morning. I hear that you discovered what had happened. Ah, well, that hopeless actor chap writes us at 5 o'clock sharp every morning without fail. But at 5:30 this morning, he started lit the gas. So I went down and knocked on his door, but no bally answer. And that's when he broke into his room by kicking down the door. Well, I called on the rum-looking Japanese chap to do the grunt work, of course. Wasn't it a little premature to kick the door down? The man could have just overstepped by half an hour. That's very true, Miss Naruhodo. 30 minutes oversleeping warranted such behavior. I'd have to kick your door down every morning. Well, you know, better to be safe than sorry and all that. Is it just me or is he avoiding our gaze now all of a sudden? Except that it was a sorry situation indeed he found on the far side of the door. The victim's name is Mr. Shamspeare, I believe. Is that right? Yes, William Shamspeare. Took the ground floor room 3 months ago now. And how would you describe it? In a word, destitute. Destitute? Well, let's face it. The only redeeming feature of their room is the cheap rent. Anyone wanting to live in a place like that is either broke or has a bally screw loose. So hard to choose which category Soseki someone fall into. Mr. Naruhodo, that's a little rude. He was doing research as well. Research? Into what? Shakespeare, of course. Shakespeare. Read a few plays of the old bard myself, you know. Romeo and Hamlet and all that. Yes, William Shakespeare is England's most highly regarded classical playwright and author. He's known as Sao in Japanese, as you know, and many of his works have already been translated. It seems incredible that Shakespeare was shortened to Sao, though. Someone was so heavy-handed there. There were a lot of costumes in the victim's room, actually, weren't there? Of course, Mr. Natsume is a scholar of English literature as well. I imagine he and Mr. Shamsky would have had much in common. Shakespeare interpretation disagreement leads to shocking murder. Let's not hope it's not that. Mr. Naruhodo, really? How rude. After Mr. Natsume's trial yesterday, you came straight back here, I believe, didn't you? Did you notice anything strange between then and this morning? Well now, must have been about 6 in the evening by the time I got home. Snow was coming down rather heavily as I remember, and it was completely dark already. That failed actor chap was out at the time. Mr. Guard, I've noticed there was no light from his room or something, I suppose. Couldn't summon the energy for anything much, so I just sat in front of the fire up here. It was after 8 before Shamsville got back. And the chap was up until past 1 in the morning, I'll have you know. Suppose he met his end sometime after that. I was asleep by then, so I'm rather in the dark there. Well, thank you. That was very illuminating. Is everything alright, Mr. Sutter? Well, I was just thinking it's a little strange, that's all. Mr. Garrett, you were up here in your room all evening, if I've understood correctly. I'm not a big fan of stairs, not of this blasted lake. Then, how is it that you seem to know? The precise movements of the tenant on the ground floor, I mean... Ah! That's a very good point. I can't imagine that you could hear noises on the ground floor all the way up here. Does this old man like to spy on his tenants, is that it? I say, I know what you're thinking, and it's a bully outrage. I'm ex-military, don't you know? I don't go around spying on my tenants, why would I? And how did you know, Mr. Garrett? It's the gas woman. The gas tells me everything. The gas. What on earth do you mean, sir? How can the gas tell you anything, let alone everything? Well, as you're probably aware, the gas is supplied to the building by pipes. Yes, I more or less worked that out. Every room in the building is connected by a single pipe to the gas main outside. And the gas company supplies gas to properties via the main. Yes, I understand that too. Let me see if I can explain. Let's say if I was to light the gas lamps up here, what do you suppose would happen? Well, obviously the room would get brighter. Exactly, but at the same time, the lights in all the other rooms of the house would dim for a moment. What? They dim? Why? Perhaps it's because when you light a gas lamp, it briefly uses more gas than usual, and that reduces the amount of gas in the pipe for the other lamps that are connected to it. That might explain why the other lamps dim momentarily, mightn't it? Yes, of course, because everything's connected to a single supply pipe. Is that supposed to happen? It sounds rather undesirable. Not a good point. Fact is, the gas company's pipes in these parts are pretty hopeless, long worn out, and barely got any gas in them to start with. Opposites is true, of course. Extinguish the lamps up here and they glow brighter in the rest of the house. Ah, right, I see. So by watching the flickering of the lamps in one room, you can determine what's happening elsewhere. You've got it. Oh, of course, because when people come back home in the evening, and before they go to sleep at night, what they're guaranteed to do is either light or put out their lamps and fires. Clever. In point of fact, the room on the ground floor and the one above it use slightly different amounts of gas. By watching the lights in here closely, I can work out almost exactly what's going on in the whole house. Gosh. That's fascinating, Mr. Garrett. Absolutely fascinating. Oh well, nothing to it really. And I can't really see that it's going to help us if the case either. What I'd like to know is why Mr. Garrett is so interested in what his tenants are up to in the first place. I feel like there's more to it than idle curiosity. Well, we've done as much investigating here as we can, I think. Perhaps we ought to go to the prison and speak with Mr. Natsume again. A good idea. Okay. Yeah, I don't think we have no new evidence at the moment. Okay, Soseki-san. Are you holding up alright? Look, Mr. Naruhodo. Mr. Natsume, have the police finished questioning you now? Look, I'm student Mr. Naruhodo Esquire! Oh, yes. What is he? Tell me! Is he a ghost? Is he here to haunt me? Let me guess. You're talking about Mr. Sholmes. He actually calls himself a great detective, Mr. Natsume, not a ghost. But his diabolic deductions, they're not of this world. They've left me. Ah! Cursed! I'm cursed, I tell you! Well, that sort of hurts. Credit where credit is due, Mr. Naruhodo. You were heavily involved in the deduction, too. Yes, moving on. We have some wonderful news. Oh. The victim that we all thought was dead has come back to life again. Now, in the absolutely worst case, you could only be tried for attempted murder. That's great, isn't it, Mr. Natsume? It's terrible! Oh. I'm stuck in the cell, suffering for some silly wrong end of the stick! You did it, didn't you? Confess, you're a killer! Why the mustache? Constant questions! I'm sorry to hear that. Ah, that selfish shyster! Make up your mind! Are you dead or alive? If you were going to come back to life, why bother dying? Wickedly, wishy-washy William! Well, it seems likely that Mr. Shamsi was never actually dead in the first place. Yes, that might make sense. And I'm pleased that he's alive, of course. Our lively debate last night was much fun. I'll be sad to think it was our last. Oh! Oops. Mr. Natsume, does this mean that you did see the victim last night? You met him as a Shamspeare, didn't you? I'm not saying another word. I demand to have a lawyer present. Who do you think I am? Please, Mr. Natsume, we need to hear your side of the story. Why am I cursed like this? It's totally not incriminating. Well, please take a look at this. Have I shown you this before, Mr. Natsume? Oh, yes, the sweet, sweet aroma of a beloved homeland. It shows that the wearer is a defense lawyer. It means nothing in Great Britain, of course, but I still wear it. Oh, I know exactly how you feel when it comes to the Mr. Naruhodo Esquire. My Haramaki belly band! I don't feel right without it! Your Haramaki belly band? It's perfect for the cold English winters. Just the thing to keep my tummy warm. Yes, I see the link. Almost. Mr. Natsume, about this receipt. It occurs to me now that it was those confounded books that saw me arrested the first time too. Oh yes, I suppose that's true. After I spent my precious pennies on them, that's the thanks I get. Now I don't know when I'll read them. No, not when. If! I may very well hate them too much to even open their covers! I don't know that we can blame the books for everything that's happened, Mr. Natsume. Maybe it wasn't much of it. Alright, but I wasn't trying to give it to you, actually. Do you know anything about this envelope? No, he doesn't. Alright. Oh, he doesn't know. He doesn't have anything to say about the teacups either. Interesting. What about the soap? You have anything to say about the soap? Mr. Natsume, what do you know about this? Ah, there it is! That laddery lowlife that took my neighbor's life and sent me sliding to the depths of despair! Slippery, sickly, psychotic saboteur! You've really got off soap, haven't you? Absolutely, and I've made up my mind. Next time someone gives me soap as a present, it's... friendship finished firmly forever! I don't know that we can blame soap for everything that's happened, Mr. Natsume. Oh, okay. What happened? Can you tell us exactly what happened last night then, Mr. Natsume? There's nothing to tell, but Mr. Naruhodo Esquire, I'm eternally grateful to you for helping me with that accursed case yesterday. The case that saw poor Miss Green hospitalized as she ended up with a knife in her back. It's hard to believe that was only yesterday. After the trial was over, I trudged my weary way back to my lowly lodgings. And that evening, at 9:30 it must have been, I visited Mr. Shamspeare. So, you did go to the victim's room then? As we feared. I didn't do anything wrong! I'd never been to his room before. It was the first time! Then, what made you decide to go? I bumped into him when I arrived back at the house. We got chatting and it developed into a discussion. Unluckiest man alive. I think that still goes to Maya. How many times has she been in the defendant's chair now? But he had to go out, so I bade him farewell. That ties into what Mr. Gardup said, but the victim went out and came back after 8. We met again later that evening, at around 9 or just after, when I took him some nice tea I brewed as a gift. So it was you who brought the tea that had clearly been drunk at the scene then. And I suppose you were discussing the works of Shakespeare, were you? Yes, that's right. That's exactly right. Romeo and Juliet, who was the stronger? It was a delightful debate. Who would win, Romeo or Juliet? I'm sure. Such a stimulating subject, Shakespeare! And the debate became very heated, so you slipped poison into Mr. Shakespeare's tea. No! Never! Not at all! Team Juliet won. That was me! And when I left his room, the flamboyant fellow was fighting fit! I swear it! Categorically! Mr. Natsume, you often say the same thing about yourself, I've noticed. That you have a cursed existence. I'm sure I've mentioned this to you before, but I've been here in Great Britain for a year now, and in that time I've learned that it's no place for me. It can be very trying to live in a foreign land and adapt to the ways of another culture. There are foreigners everywhere I look, and they all stare at me. They all laugh. That's the impression I get whenever I go out. It makes me scared to leave my room. Which is why I've become a recluse. But even in my room, I find no respite from my fears. I've moved more times than I can remember, and then 1 week ago I moved into Briar Road. But why? I mean, why do you choose that place? It doesn't seem very comfortable. Because the rent is cheap. I have so little money, it spoke to me. The rent? Obviously, there's a reason why it's cheap. Because the room is cursed. Cursed? Cursed how? The previous occupant, the man who lived there before I took the room, died there. Oh no! He was only a young man, but one morning he was found dead and no one could explain why. Surely no one would want to live in a room with a history like that. I didn't. When the letting agent recommended the place, I wavered. But I want books! And books cost money! A horrible history is a small price to pay! When I realized it would mean I could buy more books, I signed the lease like lightning. Brave. Or blinkered. But after I moved in, I soon came to realize what I'd done. I realized how horrible that room's history really was. Gosh, was it really so awful? How did the room's horrible history affect you, Mr. Natsume? What happened? At first, it was just a feeling. The feeling of beady eyes boring into my back, watching me. Do you think that might have just been your mind playing tricks on you? No. My mind doesn't know any tricks. It was someone else. It's been one long nightmare ever since I was given the keys to the place. A nightmare? You've been having bad dreams, you mean? Oh, the souls that died in that room that lean over me in my sleep and tried to strangle me. That really is horrible. And now I come to think of it, it happened again last night too. The very same night that Mr. Shamsi was writhing in agony with the poison in his body. I was on the verge of being suffocated silently by those miserable spirits in my room. You simply must move out of that room as soon as possible. Yes, you're right. I know it, and that's why. I'm already searching for the next room with a history to call home. I think perhaps you should try to avoid a combination of any kind of history at all. Otherwise, I'm scared that you yourself may become history. Alright, what are we thinking? Previous occupant died. Soseki is experiencing night terrors. I'm gonna say gas leak. I think the gas pipes are leaking. He did say, Mr. Garadab did say the pipes are no good, right? So, maybe this was a huge misunderstanding. Maybe Soseki-san's got carbon monoxide poisoning. Maybe Shamspeare also succumbed to carbon monoxide poisoning. Well, no, carbon monoxide poisoning is different. But, you know. It's it definitely sounds like there's a gas leak in there. Whew. Turns out the sun knows how to make the man listen. Like, do you guys know? Do you guys hear about like this one? There's this one Reddit post, I think, about like It wasn't like a legal advice thing, which was actually really funny. It's one of the most famous like Reddit posts on the internet. Somebody was posting legal advice for like could they sue somebody for could they sue their landlord because they kept finding messages like on sticky notes on their fridge, and the landlord was the only other person with the key to their apartment. So they were like, my landlord keeps coming in and leaving weird notes on my fridge. Could I do something about it? You know. And then one of the top answers was like, okay, well, aside from all the legal stuff, are you sure it's not you who's been leaving those messages? The way you're describing it, it sounds like you like. Is there no possibility that you've been leaving stuff there and you're not forgetting? And then the possibility of carbon monoxide poisoning was brought up in that thread. And then OP went to buy like a detector and found that yeah, there actually was a very dangerous amount of carbon monoxide buildup in there due to like some piping system or something. So literally a Reddit post saved that guy's life. So that's what came to mind. It's a great post. It's one of the all time hall. It's like probably up there in the Hall of Fame of internet posts. Don't know if you guys have ever heard of it. Of course. Mr. Lord of the Manor is worried about the curse on my room as well. I mean, Mr. Garrett. Yes, he knows that if people keep dying there, he'll never be able to rent it out again. Well, that's true. I, for one, wouldn't go near the place. Ah, perhaps that may explain why the landlord pays so much attention to the gas lamps and his tenants' movements. You mean, because he's worried about their well-being? He does seem to have an unusually keen interest in the amount of gas in the pipes. There must be a reason why he keeps such close tabs on the occupants of his let rooms. Maybe he's worried about gas leaks too. What do you mean you pay so much attention to the gas lamps? Oh dear, no, it's nothing to do with you, Miss Natsume. Please, forget I said anything. Oh, now you're talking about me behind my back as well. What's important is that Mr. Shakespeare isn't in fact dead at all. Once he's come around and he's able to tell us what happened, we'll be able to get you released. Yes, please. Oh, I do hope you're right. Excuse me. Inspector Gregson. I couldn't help overhearing what you just said. And on that note, I have some good news and some bad news. Oh, which you want in first? Always, every time, the bad news comes first. When hope is all you have, hold on to it. That's my guiding principle. Right, well, in that case, the good news it is. Huh? Sorry, but it's just a lot easier to explain everything that way. Then why did you ask me my preference? As you might have heard, the victim of the Shemspear was just unconscious. He's come round now. Yes, we saw it happen in all its terrifying glory. He's still being treated by the doctors, but we've managed to get a written statement from him already. Oh, isn't that wonderful, Miss Natsume? Oh, thank goodness. It's all over then. I can leave this somber cell. Sorry, no. That's not on the cards. What? Why have not, Inspector? Mr. Shakespeare has implicated someone as being responsible for what has happened last night. Implicated someone? Oh dear. You don't mean... I'm sorry to say I do, yes. He's pointed the finger at you. Listen up to me. Ah! By sweet poison did he seek to end my life. That wicked kite stick. So sticking up to me. No! So I'm afraid you'll be appearing in court as planned. You'll be wanting to make the necessary preparations. No! Well, what is his motive? I wonder. And so, once again, Soseki-san found himself having to take the doctor to the Old Bailey. Whether his room was haunted or whether he was just terribly unlucky, I knew I had no choice. The following day, I would represent him in court and do my utmost to break the curse that blighted him. Well, well, well. An interesting setup. To be continued. Yeah, he does seem like a skeezy person. The question is... Yeah, I guess we gotta think about it now. Let's see. So, I guess here's my quick working theory before I close the stream for tonight. What I think is, well, it's obviously it's not a confirmed theory because we get more information as we keep going on. But like, my working theory right now is the pipes are leaky. There's gas seeping into everybody's room. Mr. Garrett knows this, but because the gas pipes are like belong to the gas company, he can't do too much about it. So he's just keeping an eye out, so like to make sure that nobody's passed out from gas leaks, which is why he immediately after half an hour passed and like no response, he goes on there and kicks the door down because like somebody might actually be passed out from inhaling too much natural gas and stuff. So that would make sense. And then I think the tea is probably a red herring. And the Shamsphere was gassed by those bad pipes. It was probably leaking throughout the house since not Soseki-san's also having bad hallucinations from that same thing. But because Shamsphere hates Soseki for some reason or other, we don't know why. That part I think we'll find out in court. He decided to take the opportunity to pin like a non-existent crime on Soseki. Because he was salty, he lost the debate about who was stronger, Romeo or Juliet. Yeah, that's the working theory. It all fits together. There's not an unaccounted person. Yeah, true. The peeping Tom. Don't know what's up with that, but we'll see. It could be just like a Cody Hackett situation, like that's gonna be on mystery witness because he was hanging around the outside or something. I don't know. Maybe he was putting Olivia doesn't live in the area. Why is she there? Oh right, she doesn't live in the area. True. Did she used to live there? Because Mr. Garrett has that portrait from an art student, right? Was Olive the art student? Maybe. I don't know. It's possible. We have a lot of unanswered questions here. But yeah, my current working theory. There's a gas leak in the building, and everyone's just high out of their minds. Yeah. All right. That'll be it for today. Thank you for watching. I will see you guys around soon. Peace.